Welcome to another episode of Things You Thought the Bible Says, but it doesn't. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about another clothing issue, specifically gender-specific clothing. Now, have you ever noticed that in legalistic churches, most of the rules are geared towards and about women? It's about whether or not women should wear makeup, whether or not they should wear pants, whether or not they should wear jewelry, can they cut their hair, what kind of haircut should they have, and they better definitely cover up as much skin as possible. Now, there is hardly any restrictions placed on men, and I wonder why that is. But with all of the actual sins and problems in the world and in the church for that matter, it's awful surprising why so much attention is paid to the kinds of outfits women wear. Now listen, I'm not talking about improper things, I'm not talking about modesty, because let's be real, you shouldn't be dressed like you're going to the club when you're going to church. In fact, you really shouldn't be going to the club anyways, but that's another subject. There's a verse that is often focused on in this topic, and I want to go to it now. Deuteronomy chapter 22, verse number 5. A woman shall not wear a man's garment, nor shall a man put on a woman's cloak. For whoever does these things is an abomination to the Lord your God. Now, the King James Version says a woman should not wear that which pertaineth to a man. Now, those who harp on this verse pretty much take this to mean that a woman should not wear pants. I remember during my first pastorate, a woman had been attending my church that was from the apostolic tradition. And at the time, my wife was 8.5 months pregnant. And on this particular Sunday, she was wearing a pair of maternity pants. Really, they were maternity gauchos, I guess you could call them. Because really, she couldn't wear anything else. But she was completely modest, as she always is. Now, at the end of the service, this lady walked up to my wife and said, "Why are you wearing that which pertaineth to a man? Don't you know the Bible says not to do that?" Now, my wife is loving, but she's also blunt. She's not as shepherdy as I am. And so she just looked at her and said, "Sister, I got these off the women's rack in the women's section of the store." And then she walked away. Now, I've never really understood what is so difficult about understanding this issue. It's really very easy to tell when a piece of clothing is feminine and when it is not. In fact, in the times that this Bible verse was written, both men and women wore dress-like tunics. It was the colors, the cuts, and the fringes and accessories that separated out the male and female styles. But it was the same type of garment with little style tweaks. So if a woman wears blue jeans, but they're obviously a feminine style and cut, how is that not the same thing? It is. Now, pants were nowhere in the mind of Moses, and they were not invented till well beyond in history. Now, this somewhat reminds me of another incident that happened years back. It's somewhat related, but I wasn't actually at home at the time. And there was a pastor in the area, I'm not going to say the church, but one of these very legalistic tradition churches. And this pastor came to my house when I wasn't there, soul winning. And in fact, it was 9 o'clock at night. A little late for soul winning, I think. But he came to my house unsolicited, knocked on my door. My wife answered the door wearing a pair of shorts. She told the man that she was already saved and that her husband was a minister. And the man then replied in a nasty and snarky way, "Your husband's a preacher and he lets you wear shorts?" Once again, my wife, loving but blunt, answered, "I'm in my home and you came to my door at 9 o'clock at night. Good night." And she shut the door. Now, I would love to say I don't understand this kind of thinking, but unfortunately I do. I was just as legalistic in the past. At the time of my greatest moral failures, in fact, I was the most legalistic of all. So, come on guys, let's use some common sense. Now listen, if you have a personal conviction, ladies, about not wearing pants, then don't do it. But stop teaching as doctrine the traditions of men and condemning people to hell and sin if they do. Because the Bible doesn't say it. We'll see you next time. God bless.